Right now, at this exact moment, a shift is happening that most people will scroll past, ignore, or never even notice. Yet for a small number of people, it feels different, almost like an invisible pressure building beneath the surface of their thoughts, a quiet pull that cannot be explained with logic alone. And if you are feeling even the slightest change in your focus, your emotions, or your awareness, then this message is not random. It is for you, because what is unfolding on the 1st of April is not just another date on the calendar. It is a symbolic turning point where your internal energy begins to align with a completely new direction, a new timeline shaped by the choices you are about to make. And while most people continue repeating the same patterns without realizing it, a few become aware of this shift and step into something entirely different, something that changes how they think, how they act, and ultimately how their life unfolds from this point forward. There is a reason why certain moments in time feel heavier, more intense, or unusually clear, and it is not because the world itself has changed overnight, but because your awareness is starting to catch signals that were always there but never fully recognized. And this is where things begin to get interesting, because what many people casually call a quantum portal is not a physical doorway or a fantasy concept. It is a moment of alignment where your thoughts, your focus, and your emotional state begin to synchronize in a way that opens up new possibilities that were previously invisible to you. And while this may sound abstract, it is actually rooted in a simple but powerful truth. Your perception shapes your direction, and your direction shapes your reality, which means that when your awareness shifts, your entire life can begin to move in a different direction without any external force pushing it. What makes this moment even more important is the fact that most people will completely miss it, not because it is hidden, but because it requires attention. And attention is something that is constantly being pulled in 100 different directions every single day. And this is why the difference between someone who stays stuck and someone who moves forward is not luck or talent. It is awareness, the ability to recognize when something is changing internally and to respond to it instead of ignoring it. And right now, this shift is creating a rare window where the decisions you make, the thoughts you repeat, and the focus you choose can have a stronger impact than usual, almost like a multiplier effect that amplifies whatever direction you lean into, whether that direction leads you forward or keeps you exactly where you are. There are also subtle signs that begin to appear during moments like this, signs that are often dismissed as random or unimportant, yet they hold deeper meaning if you pay close attention, such as sudden clarity about things that once confused you, a growing discomfort with routines that used to feel normal, or a quiet but persistent urge to change something in your life, even if you cannot fully explain why. And these signals are not coincidences. They are indicators that your internal state is shifting, that your mind is beginning to break away from old patterns and explore new possibilities. And while this process may feel uncertain or even slightly uncomfortable, it is actually a necessary step toward growth, because no real transformation happens without first disrupting what is familiar. In this video, you are going to understand what is really happening beneath the surface of this so-called quantum portal, why this specific moment carries more weight than it appears, and how your energy, meaning your thoughts, your focus, and your emotional patterns, is directly influencing the timeline you are moving into. You will also discover why some people remain stuck in cycles that repeat over and over again, while others seem to break free and move into completely new phases of their life. And perhaps most importantly, you will learn how to recognize which direction you are currently heading and what small but powerful adjustments you can make right now to align yourself with a better outcome. Because the truth is, this shift is not about waiting for something external to happen. It is about understanding what is already happening within you and using that awareness to make conscious choices instead of automatic ones. By the time you reach the end of this video, you will see this moment differently, not as just another passing day, but as an opportunity that most people overlook. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it, because awareness changes everything. It changes how you interpret your thoughts, how you respond to your emotions, and how you approach the decisions that shape your future. And this is exactly why it is important to stay until the very end, because each part of this explanation builds on the last. And missing even a small piece could mean missing the full picture of what is actually happening and how it connects directly to your life in a very real and practical way. So if something inside you feels like this message is reaching you at the right time, then pay attention, stay focused, and take this seriously. Because moments like this do not announce themselves loudly, they appear quietly, and only those who are willing to notice them can truly benefit from them. And with that said, welcome to the channel where we break down complex ideas into simple truths that actually make a difference. And if you want to keep understanding how your mind, your energy, and your choices shape your reality, make sure to subscribe, stay connected, and be part of a space where awareness leads the way forward. There is a layer to this moment that cannot be seen with the eyes, and it is not something you can touch or walk through. Yet it is real in the way your thoughts suddenly feel sharper, your emotions feel closer to the surface, and your attention begins to lock onto ideas that did not matter before. And this is what many describe as a quantum portal, not a physical opening in space, but a shift in awareness, where your internal state becomes more sensitive to direction, almost like a compass that suddenly starts working again after being ignored for a long time. And the reason this matters is because not everyone feels it, not everyone notices it. Only those who are already beginning to question their patterns, their habits, and their current path start to sense that something is different. Something is pulling them to look deeper, to pause, to reflect. And if this feeling has been quietly building inside you, then this is not random. It means your awareness is starting to move. And once that movement begins, it does not easily stop. It keeps pushing you to pay attention, to notice what you once ignored, and to feel what you once avoided. At first, it does not arrive as a clear message. It shows up in fragments, in small moments where your thoughts feel heavier than usual, where you find yourself going back to decisions you made in the past and questioning them in a way you did not before, almost like your mind is trying to reevaluate everything at once. And alongside that, there is this quiet but persistent feeling that something needs to change, even if you cannot clearly define what that change is. And this is where most people become confused because nothing external has shifted yet. Your environment looks the same, your routine feels the same, but internally something is no longer comfortable. Something no longer fits the way it used to. And that discomfort is often misunderstood. Yet it is one of the clearest signals that your awareness is moving beyond its old limits. You may also notice waves of emotion appearing without warning, not extreme enough to cause alarm, but strong enough to make you pause. Moments where you feel motivated and clear, followed by moments where you feel uncertain or even slightly overwhelmed. And these fluctuations are not signs of instability. They are signs of transition, because when your mind begins to shift from one pattern to another, it does not happen in a straight line. It moves in waves, adjusting, correcting, and recalibrating as it goes. And during this process, your attention becomes more powerful than usual, meaning whatever you focus on starts to feel more intense, more real, and more influential than before. This is where the idea of a timeline shift becomes easier to understand. Because it is not about jumping into a different reality instantly. It is about gradually aligning your thoughts, your focus, and your decisions in a direction that leads to a different outcome. And this alignment begins internally long before anything changes externally, which is why many people miss it. They wait for visible proof instead of recognizing the internal shift that comes first. And by the time the external changes appear, the direction has already been set. The path has already been chosen through repeated thoughts and consistent focus. The 1st of April acts as a symbolic trigger point in this process, not because of the date itself, but because moments like this create a sense of awareness, a pause in the usual flow where people become slightly more reflective, even if they do not realize it. And this pause creates an opportunity, a window where your internal state can shift more easily, where patterns can be questioned, and where new directions can begin to form. And while this may seem subtle, its impact can be significant because small changes in thought patterns, when repeated consistently, lead to larger changes in behavior, and behavior shapes results over time. However, this is also where the most important contrast appears, because at this exact point, there are two clear paths forming, one that leads back into familiar patterns and one that leads into something new. And the difference between them is not dramatic in the beginning, it is almost invisible. It exists in small choices, in moments where you either follow the same reaction you always have or choose to respond differently. And the path of the old timeline is built on comfort, on staying within what is known, even if it no longer feels right. It is driven by habits that have been repeated so many times they feel automatic. And this is why it is so easy to fall back into it, because it requires no effort, no awareness, just repetition. On the other hand, the new timeline is not as comfortable in the beginning. It requires attention. It requires you to notice your thoughts before they turn into actions. It requires you to pause and choose differently, even when it feels unfamiliar. And this is where many people step back, not because they cannot move forward, but because the uncertainty feels uncomfortable and the mind naturally prefers what it already knows, even if it is not ideal. And this is why most people return to their old patterns, not because they are forced to, but because it feels easier, it feels safer, and it does not require change. What separates those who move forward from those who stay the same is not knowledge alone, it is awareness in action, the ability to recognize these moments as they happen and respond to them consciously. And this is where the activation begins, not as a dramatic event, but as a series of small internal decisions that gradually shift your direction. And the key to this process is understanding that your focus is not neutral. It is active. It shapes how you interpret situations, how you respond to challenges, and how you move through your day, which means that what you focus on today has a direct impact on the path you are building. If your focus remains on doubt, on hesitation, on repeating the same thoughts that have kept you in the same place, then your direction will remain the same, even if you want change. But if your focus begins to shift, even slightly, toward clarity, toward possibility, toward taking small steps forward, then your direction begins to change. And this change does not need to be extreme. It does not require a complete transformation overnight. It starts with awareness, with noticing the patterns that are no longer serving you and choosing not to follow them automatically. Your beliefs also play a role in this alignment because what you believe influences what you expect, and what you expect influences how you act. And this chain reaction happens continuously, often without conscious awareness. And this is why moments like this are important, because they create an opportunity to interrupt that automatic cycle, to question whether the beliefs you are holding are actually helping you move forward or keeping you in the same place. And once you begin to question them, you create space for something new to take their place. As this process continues, the idea of a new timeline becomes less abstract and more practical, because it is no longer about a distant concept. It becomes something you can feel in your daily actions, in the way you respond to situations, in the choices you make when no one is watching. And these small changes begin to build momentum. Slowly at first, but consistently and over time, they lead to noticeable differences in your life, not because of a single moment, but because of repeated alignment with a new direction. This is where the emotional shift begins to take shape, because as you move further into this new alignment, you start to experience a sense of clarity that was not present before. Decisions feel less forced, your thoughts feel more organized, and there is a growing sense of direction that replaces the confusion you may have felt earlier. And while challenges still exist, they no longer feel overwhelming in the same way because your perspective has shifted, and with that shift comes a different approach to handling them. There is also a sense of purpose that begins to develop, not as a fixed destination, but as a feeling of moving in the right direction, even if you do not have all the answers yet. And this feeling is important because it reinforces the choices you are making. It gives you a reason to continue, even when the path is not fully clear. And this is how the new timeline becomes stronger, not through a single decision, but through consistent alignment with thoughts and actions that support growth. As this continues, the contrast between the old and new paths becomes more visible. The old patterns begin to feel more limiting, more restrictive, while the new direction feels more open, more flexible. And this awareness makes it easier to continue moving forward because you can clearly see the difference between where you were and where you are heading. And this clarity becomes a form of motivation, not driven by pressure, but by understanding. Over time, this shift creates a different experience of life, one where you are not simply reacting to circumstances, but actively shaping your direction through awareness and choice. And this does not mean everything becomes perfect. It means you become more aligned with your decisions, more intentional with your actions, and more aware of how your internal state influences your external results. And this awareness is what allows the new timeline to fully take shape, gradually, consistently, and in a way that feels natural rather than forced. And when you step back and look at everything clearly, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This moment is not random. And the fact that you stayed here, listening, thinking, reflecting, that is not random either, because most people would have clicked away. Most people would have dismissed this as just another idea, but you didn't. And that says something about where you are right now in your life. It shows that a part of you is already searching for something more, something deeper, something that actually makes sense beyond surface level thinking. And that is exactly where change begins, not outside, but within awareness itself. What is happening right now is subtle but powerful. It is not loud. It does not force itself on you. It simply presents an opportunity, a moment where you can either continue following the same patterns that lead to the same outcomes, or pause, become aware, and choose a different direction. And that choice, even if it feels small, carries more weight than it seems, because every major shift in life starts with a decision that most people overlook. A quiet moment where you decide to think differently, act differently, and respond differently. And over time, those small decisions begin to reshape everything. You were not brought here by coincidence. There are countless videos, countless distractions, countless things competing for attention every single second. Yet you are here, still listening, still processing. And that means something. It means you are already more aware than you think. And awareness is the first step toward any real transformation. Because once you see something clearly, you cannot go back to not seeing it. And once you recognize the patterns that have been holding you in place, you gain the ability to step beyond them. This moment matters more than it appears, not because of the date, not because of the words being used, but because of what it activates inside you. The realization that your thoughts are not just passing ideas, your focus is not just random attention, and your choices are not just small actions. They are all connected, shaping the direction you are moving in every single day. And once you understand that, you begin to move differently. You begin to choose more carefully, and you begin to align yourself with something better, something more intentional. And if something in this message resonated with you even slightly, then pay attention to that feeling, because it is not something to ignore. It is a signal, a quiet confirmation that you are ready to see things differently, ready to move beyond old patterns, and ready to step into a version of yourself that is more aware, more focused, and more aligned with where you truly want to go. So take a moment, let this sink in, and decide what you will do next, because the direction you choose from here is entirely in your hands. And if you want to keep exploring ideas like this, ideas that help you think deeper, grow stronger, and move forward with clarity, then make sure you stay connected with this channel. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Like this video if it gave you a new perspective, and share it with someone who might need to hear this right now, because sometimes the smallest message can create the biggest shift.